Welcome to the fourth visit for a collection of spaces. This is with designer Michael Marriott. He's the first person outside of the kind of small group of friends that I visited. I just sent him an email a few weeks ago and he responded and was very kind of responsive and welcomed me to his studio. I came across Michael's work from the Modernist Estates Instagram last year. It was really worth checking out that Instagram if you haven't seen it before. He had a pop-up market stall inside the new Paul Smith shop at Borough Market, and it was great to see the smaller objects from his wood, metal, plastic project in real life. As with a couple of these conversations, we connected about a shared interest in local skateparks, a place that Michael visits with his son, and he kind of slowly witnessed the communities that they foster, being kind of an outsider to that world, and kind of him and his son kind of being accepted to it, which was really nice to hear. We spent the morning at his studio/workshop in Dalston talking about setting up the space when he moved there about 11 years ago and how it's evolved for him and the projects that he's made there. We spoke about the difference between the workshop and studio and what the definition is for him. Also about what is a designer, maker or a craftsperson. Unfortunately, that part of the conversation we didn't record. The whole time I was like, I want to kind of capture this. But just that interjection of like stopping the conversation and getting the recorder out, I didn't want to kind of ruin it. We talk about the interesting kind of layers that you create in front of your eyes, whether that be as a designer. We talked about the coat hooks that he kind of created from old mustard pots that kind of have a chamfered edge, and also like as a photographer, kind of how you see the world, and also as a skateboarder. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Michael Marriott. Don't forget you can see all the photos that I took kind of during the conversation and afterwards of his studio and kind of workshop on the website. You'll see the links kind of in the descriptions and those kind of things. Enjoy.
Tell you a bit about the space, if that's
I think that'd be useful. Yeah.
Okay.
If that's all right.
So I've moved here just over 11 years ago, and as I said in there, I moved here because every studio and workshop I'd had before this was in the typical crumbling old Victorian Edwardian brick infrastructure, or a railway arch was my first space, and each and every one of those spaces has been cold, drafty, damp, impossible to heat, or near impossible to heat, and definitely impossible to heat sustainably. And then I had a child, and for the first 2 or 3 years of his life, we didn't sleep so much and felt exhausted. And I think that was the prompt for me, having sort of feeling like I'd suffered through the last 2 winters in my last studio, where that cold and damp had kind of got to me because I was tired the whole time, and no longer just putting on more layers felt like it was doing it.
You were tired to the core.
Yeah.
And cold to the core.
And this place came up by sort of chance, really. I wasn't actively looking, but I knew that I wanted to get a better workshop space, and I'd been in conversation with my landlord at the old place and asked him to flag up if a ground floor space came up that was bigger, so I could, because the place I had there was up an awkward stairway through, and
similar to mine right at the moment.
And it was really crazy place to have a workshop, really, when I look back, and when I first went there, I wasn't making stuff so much, and it was more like a little prototyping place, but it was totally, every time you wanted to use something you had to move everything else to get to it, and then and it's full of stuff as well. Anyway, and I've seen a couple of spaces, 2 or 3 spaces become available and then get given to other people, and I realised that Tony, the lovely landlord, he would just give in to whoever hassled him, and I wasn't a hassler. So I think I'd accepted that that's unlikely to happen, and then this came up, and I just went and had a look at it, thought, wow, it's odd, but we can make it work. We can turn this round. And so I just sort of jumped ship, made it work. I think that was the driving force, was like, this is a brand new building pretty much, it's going to be insulated. It's going to be built to some sort
Was that
of.
like the number one thing
rigs.
on the list of wants? Like
Well, I don't know if it wasn't.
warm.
Really. I think the first thing was I knew that I wanted to have a more sensible place to make things where I could get, you know, a truck turn up with some plywood on and walk straight in off the street. That was my concern there at the old place, that was the hassle. But then when this came out, it just made me realise, well, that would be a sustainable place to hold heat. And actually it's well insulated. I hardly ever have put heat on here. It can get a little bit warm in the workshop in August.
Yeah, it's got the big window and stuff.
And you get quite a lot of sun there. But it stays pretty constant, the temperature, throughout the year. So it's just wonderful. And in fact, I insulated that bit of ceiling behind you because I realised that once I'd built this wall separating the workshop and the studio, it was definitely a couple of degrees cooler in here all the time. And I thought, I wonder where that's getting in. And I became slightly, not obsessed, but slightly like analytical about this because it was this new world. Like I couldn't have done, if I'd insulated anything in the last place, there were so many other cracks in the walls and other things that were, you'd just be fighting a losing battle, like patching up moving the chairs on the Titanic.
The walls would be like 2 meters thick and you're sitting in a tinfoil box.
But also the ceiling, the roof was fucked. We'd been up on the roof and patched it up a few times, but every time you walked across the roof to patch something up, you felt like it was some sort of, I don't know if it was asbestos, but it was a sort of mesh corrugated, impregnated with something. It was a post-Second World War patch-up that was, I don't know how long it was supposed to last, but when you walked on it, you could hear these noises. You think, am I just crumbling, and making tiny fissures in this stuff, and it would just turn into another leak. So anyway, but I bought a laser thermometer because I suspected that between those two skylights, I knew there's a little sort of terrace for the office above. I thought, I suspect that's maybe where the heat, it's like a heat sink in a way. So I bought this laser thermometer, and it was, I tested it or measured it a few times and around the rest of the space, and that was where it was getting out. And I just thought, well, if I could, insulate that, we might never ever need to heat this building. Wouldn't that be such a fantastic thing? Like, in terms environmentally.
Like a simple remedy.
So it's not foolproof, but it's only like an inch, but there's another 35mm gap of air behind it. And
also, it visually looks quite nice.
And it looks quite nice, but it definitely does help.
A bit about ticking both boxes.
And I think also having a place that's a bit more proper and permanent, you feel like you can make those adjustments and make that commitment. And
because when you moved, so it was like 11 years ago. Did you think you'd be here 11 years?
I thought this is it. This is I'm staying here for good. This definitely, that was and I think that's the first time I'd ever felt that before. Everything else felt like it was sort of temporary. And I came here thinking, no, this will be good forever. It's plenty big enough. I thought it was. I mean, I could do with more space in a way, but I don't really want more space because I'll just fill it up with other stuff.
I mean, we're sitting at the moment in like the kitchen. You have a full kitchen area with a dining table and.
I mean, it's not really a full kitchen, but it's enough to make a nice lunch with.
And then just around the corner you have like a desk set up, and then the workshop on the other side. So it's like very not segregated, but it has its defined sections in that way. Which
I mean, I knew I definitely wanted a separating wall between clean and dirty and quiet and noisy, and I went, so I built the wall quite substantially. Like the last place we were in, also when I moved there, it was like 25 years ago or something. We moved in. I remember we asked the landlord. He said it was a 3-year lease, and that just seemed like a long time. At the time, so we said, could we do 2 years? Thinking that seems a bit less scary. It went
nice
by.
Round number.
Went by before you knew it, of course. But there we built a wall to separate off the workshop bit at the front, and we didn't have much money and did it out of, I think I used 3x2s and 9mm plasterboard each side.
Yeah.
Didn't insulate it, and then a window that I'd found in a skip, and a door that I got from the old workshop that was in a pile of stuff someone had, and and in fact above it there was a sort of loft space that was actually just insulated with 2mm, like it's like that stuff that they use for estate agent boards.
Like a plasticky honeycomb.
Almost like drinking straws built as a wall. And
really well insulated. Great R value on that.
And it was really more like a dust barrier.
Yeah.
And it was stuff that I think it came from an exhibition. You know, I've always tried to recycle stuff and reuse stuff. It was something that was left over from an exhibition build or something. It was actually it's the same stuff they use nowadays for putting on to protect floors in building site mode.
Stuff.
Yeah, Corex. That's the stuff. Yeah. And we put it both sides of the joists. Yeah. There was a sort of like a triangle going up into the roof space, and it worked actually as a dust barrier, and it's still there remarkably 25 years later because, with UV that stuff breaks down, doesn't it? And it turns into this sort of crumbly, horrible. Anyway, but of course, if you, I was shared it initially with two friends. One was graphic designer, the other one she was a metal work designer. Did a lot of stuff with public, like railings. She'd often do like community stuff with schools. Yeah. Work with a group of school kids to design some railings or gates and that kind of thing. So I was the only one who really had a need for a workshop, but they both liked the idea of it, and actually a lot of the time we just used it mostly for bicycle maintenance and storage. But I was very aware when I did do things in there that if I was in there putting some stuff through the table saw, it wasn't the ideal time to have a telephone conversation in the other room.
So you're like scheduling stuff.
So I definitely did schedule stuff
kind of holding you,
and that was fine. It was never a problem. But I thought when I come here, I thought I'm going to make this more substantial. So this internal skin is all 18mm MDF that came from an exhibition that was being taken down at Somerset House. I was designing an exhibition there, and there was this massive fashion show on that was the show before the one we were doing. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, let's so much MDF. I mean, they filled 2 40-foot skips with what we didn't use. And I said, can we just build our exhibition out of all that MDF? It means we've got no materials budget. We can then spend the money, but you don't have to spend so much money. But also, this is just going to go in the skip, isn't it? And they went, yeah. So, and then after coming away from the meeting where I proposed that, and they were like, no, it's a great idea. I thought it was in the lead up to coming here where I knew it was going to happen, and I called the guy that was doing the build and said, Chris, that MDF you're putting aside for our show, could you put another like 20 sheets aside for me? And I know there's not much room to store it, but if I just tell me when I need to get it out by, and I'll come down with a van and get it. So that's all ex-fashion show at Somerset House. And then on the inside face of that is a load of the brown oatmeal carpet tiles that were down here, which I just thought, what do I do with these? I thought, well, they've got to help, haven't they?
Good soundproofing,
And then there's a bit more insulation, and then,
Nice.
Yeah, and then this window came from a project that I was doing around that time. That's a really high spec double glazed unit with all sorts of stuff in it that are useless to me. But
have you always been like collecting? Like you said, you were making like when you were making things when you were younger. Did you do a similar thing then? Like kind of
I've
looking
always,
at what's around in that way.
I think it's I think it's built into me. Partly, I think growing up with, my mum and my mum's parents, grandparents, we spent a lot of time with, and they were that sort of typical war generation who
holding on. To
were kind of not really frugal, but they would keep jam jars and put stuff in them. They would all that stuff. We all do to some extent, but I think that and just that idea of not being wasteful And my mum definitely inherited that, and I think I have from her.
Yeah.
But then on the other side of the family, my dad was an antique dealer, worked for this company in Fulham. And as a kid, I used to go to their workshops a lot in weekends and school holidays, and work with guys there, helping out, and just doing all the sort of odd jobs that needed doing. I'd make tea at break times.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I got given more complex jobs to do. And
how old were you when you were doing that?
I don't know. I started quite young. I don't know what age. Maybe like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And but I'd always been interested in making stuff. I'd always fiddled with bikes and things from that kind of age and whatever. And I learned a lot from seeing stuff being done in those workshops, and I was I saw a lot of that, antiques being repaired and how they kept. My dad would buy this company that he worked for specialised in Regency furniture, and he would often buy like a Victorian table, dining table, which was a cheap thing at the time. But Victorian furniture was considered, like a bit crappy, but a solid mahogany, sometimes often an extending dining table would be the sort of thing he'd be interested in, because it had, 2 or 4, possibly 6 slabs of solid mahogany that he could just stockpile and use to repair
like the next thing,
a Regency thing with.
Yeah.
And then that changed over the years in terms of Victorian furniture. I think because Regency furniture became so expensive, Regency furniture suddenly, Victorian furniture then became seen as more affordable, so it picked up again as a market.
Yeah.
But when they would, so furniture there would be stuff in that workshop that was being bought to break up and use the wood. Yeah. And often, when a piece of old valuable furniture had a chunk of wood chipped out of the end of a scroll leg or something, they would go through a stack of all these odd bits of wood and find a similar type of typically mahogany, and they'd try and get something as close in age as they could identify, whatever, and patch it in, and then it was amazing skill. And I mean it's sort of like a funny skill, because it seems it's a bit like jewellery making. I think you can get away with quite a lot of bodge work because it's not a precise looking thing. It's not engineered. No. But yeah, anyway, I think because I love making stuff, I've always been intrigued by how things are made, and also how things are unmade or repaired or put back together again. So I saw a lot of that going on, and I think I loved the sort of resourcefulness and ingenuity of how it was done. And there was old guy called Bill, who was the sort of main French polisher, and he was like an artist really. He could colour wood and patch in things in a way that you would never have known that had been done. I always kind of liked it before it got to that stage, but I worked with him a bit. I worked with the upholstery guys a bit, so I did lots of different things. Yeah. But I just remember being really impressed by what he could do. But also he was, I can't remember now but he was a proper old school old bloke. He must have been knocking on 70 at the time, I suppose. But he always had a roll-up cigarette hanging out the corner of his mouth. He would wrap up bits of used sandpaper to mix oils and pigments and whatever to get the colour right. But he would test them all by a little brush on his hands. So his hands were covered in the little marks of reds and browns and blacks. And then he'd, at the end of the day, we'd go and wash our hands in the washroom. There was this big sack of some sort of crystals. You used to dip your wet hands in these crystals that stick to it, and I'm sure it was some sort of
can't be good.
Some sort of acidic And
Like
your
that red
hands-
stuff that you get now, but like
Yeah,
not.
but your hands did sort of buzz a bit afterwards. But his hands never went.
Yeah, it's just like it's in.
They were the colour of Cuban mahogany. His hands. It was incredible. And he was a totally like an old white bloke with white hair. One of those old white blokes who only ever wore white shirts and an old black suit jacket with mismatched trousers. Almost like a bit of string as a belt. That kind of thing. Old black, dress shoes. But he was, and always. I don't think he ever didn't have a rollie out the corner of his mouth. But he could. Yeah, he was an amazing craftsman. I think that's the thing. That's sort of proper craft in my book. In terms of that, the messiness of that term. Yeah, and there were proper craftspeople in those workshops.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but there's a Spanish guy called Angel that I learned a lot from, who was an incredible craftsman actually.
Yeah.
One of the most skilled makers. He could make anything. Felt like one of those people that could make anything.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the restorers were more like they could bodge together something that was good enough.
Yeah.
And it worked in that world because it was old battered furniture. So it didn't. And often, the other thing is when they replaced typically like a bracket foot on the front of a chest of drawers or a bureau or something.
Yeah.
You'd put new bits of wood on. You'd copy the other one on the left hand side to match.
Yeah.
Cut the same scroll shape in it, whatever. You put it on, but of course it's brand new bit of wood or an old bit of wood that's been cut new and cut to the right thickness, planed. So the surfaces are smooth and fine.
Yeah.
Whereas the one on the left hand side has been sitting at the bottom of right at the front outside corner.
Yeah.
Of a chest of drawers for 150 years.
Yeah,
So it's got
been
all
bashed by
sorts,
everything. Yeah.
By possibly hoovers, but plenty of feet and who knows, God knows
Moved
what
in and
else.
out of houses and stuff.
So to before you colour that, you need to sort of give it a few dents and things.
Yeah.
And that was one of the sort of impressive tricks they had. They'd have a bunch of old keys and other bits of odd metalwork on the end of a chain and just swing it around. I remember doing it and thinking, this is great fun.
Yeah.
And then you'd put some colour on it and maybe do a bit more. And then Bill, who was the French polisher, he did this thing where he had a collection of little rocks and pebbles that he would roll across to give a sort of second level of small dents, like the things that happen at the bottom of wooden furniture, where you get these almost imperceptible dents, but they stop it being this precise sheen of newly planed.
It's kind of like in the films where they do foley art, like the sound thing, and they're making like
Yeah.
horse things.
Yeah, a
from
little bit like that.
Those
Yeah.
kind of things. Like,
Yeah, it's a
how does this
similar-
get to this process?
Yeah,
Like if you go back.
Yeah.
Kind of really interested in that.
yeah. Yeah, so I think, anyway, that long aside, but that was another aspect of me, my resourcefulness or something.
Yeah, and then you went on to study furniture.
Yeah, I went to the London College of Furniture, which was a great place.
Yeah.
And I did it. Yeah, it was a sort of BTEC. It was a BTEC diploma, which was a very different thing to an art school training.
Yeah. In what way? More like technical, or
more
less, like,
technical.
history-based?
But I suppose the whole culture of the place was that it was a technical school, training people for trades. So there'd be, sitting guilds, day release students coming in doing upholstery or French polishing or all sorts of things, cabinet making. And we had sort of an art, I forgot what it was called, there was an RE element to our course. And we had some great tutors on that. But it was a little bit like, it felt like that was an add-on, because within the course you trained either to become a restorer, or there was 4 things. There was production, which is basically training to go and manage factories, furniture factories, production for the antiques trade. There was design, which was, I don't know what it was really, because it wasn't really industrial design, but the 4th one was design craft, I think it was called. So it was a bit more like what the designer maker thing was. And that was the one I instinctively went on, and that was, I think, I'm pretty sure that was the biggest one by at least double than all the others.
Yeah. How many people were on the course at the time?
Probably 40.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago, so I wouldn't rely on that information. But yeah, and then the antiques restoration course was the next most popular.
Yeah.
So it was a funny because and a lot of the people there, were like me, people that weren't very good at school academically, but were either good at woodwork and design technology or interested enough in
figuring things out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there wasn't so much. Yeah, I think most people that end up on degree courses, typically you do it via a foundation course, don't you? So it comes more through the art stream.
Yeah.
And I never had that. I mean, I was interested in art, and I think that was another great thing. There was a great library there, but I was going and looking at art in galleries and things from a young age, just because I liked it. And then we got some exposure to it through I forgot what they called it, but the arty element of the course. And he had this great library full of books. And there was a connection between the London College of Furniture and the John Cass School of Art, which did foundation courses and fine art courses and stuff around the corner, so we could borrow books from that library as well. So there was two amazing libraries within 150 metres of each other.
Did it have like a big workshop at the time, or
massive workshops? Yeah, on most floors, on the ground floor, which was sort of slightly semi-basement, there was a proper mill with, and we did we were sort of fully trained to use, to be a machine hand on a spindle moulder and whatever. And it was, they had, bandsaws with, 3-foot throats and table, straight edge saws at the back, cross-cut saws, massive saws, and then planer thickness, everything, lathes, They even had a copy lathe in there actually, which was very rarely used. I think it was more there as a thing probably for the more like the production people. But I remember asking, what's that do exactly? How's that used? Because I've never seen it running.
No.
But yeah, we were shown how to use all that stuff, and we had to pass an exam in that. That was part of the course, So that's I guess how you get that stuff that you wouldn't have got on a design.
No. It's like
or furniture course.
Yeah, there's a workshop if you want to use it. But
and then we had regular workshops.
Yeah.
Hand full of benches and hand tools. Also there was on the 4th floor, which was where we spent, or 3rd floor was it? We spent most of our time where there was a regular woodwork shop with small table saws and band saws, and there was one of them that had a small planer thicknesser in it, and then there was metal workshop. There was a plastic workshop, which was a little bit more like an introduction to plastics, because of course there's only so much of that technology you can really address in a
So during that time, did you ever go and visit other, I was going to use the word makers, but other designers, like spaces and things? When was I guess you grew up in your dad's where he worked, and seeing a proper workshop in that way. But going and seeing more like a studio or anything like that, when was do you remember the first time?
Not really. So there was a part-time tutor there, who was quite a nutty young guy, interesting. I'm sure he would have called himself a designer maker. And then there was a tutor there who was a bit more regular, and they both had workshops off of Arnold Circus, you know that?
Yeah.
And there was these community workshops that were built as part of that estate for the residents.
Oh, wow.
Initially, that was the plan. And then over the years, they've got sublet or whatever.
Yeah.
And they both had spaces there. And so Jackie had space, which I saw later. But this other guy, Noel, he had this tiny place. I mean really crazy. I do it myself, as in everything's on wheels almost, so you can
modular. Yeah.
Shift things about to accommodate whatever a project is. But his was almost like you had to open the door and get everything out before you get in and do it. Not quite, but yeah. So that was probably the first time I saw a workshop out in the wild.
Yeah.
That wasn't
wasn't super production.
No,
no. Yeah.
I'm trying to think if we ever did any sort of factory visits and things. I don't remember that we did.
Yeah.
Which is sort of weird in a way, because there was definitely connections to industry with that college, because it was an industrial a supplier to industry of people, you know.
Yeah, but yeah, like I was kind of saying about like my being at university and going on like shoots.
Yeah,
like that was my experience of doing that.
Yeah,
but I'm sure some people could have gone through the course.
And
got to the end and not experience even like going to a white like Cove studio or being on like a fashion shoot in a field or wherever it was. And you're like,
I mean, it's such a brilliant thing to have, or I'd say an essential thing really to have access to in your, as part of the education. Isn't it?
Yeah, but that was pretty much off your own back really. A lot of the time it wasn't like a group 100-person trip to come and see a space like this or whatever in that way. But it's like, I think very inspiring. Well, for me, like very inspiring to see those spaces.
Yeah, no, it is, isn't it? I mean, I still love seeing a factory, getting a factory tour, or seeing a nice workshop. I love it. Still.
Do you get to go? So with like the products that you make, I'm trying to think of the word that you used earlier. Not batch production.
Well, it is
you were talking about is it industrial? You're talking about like when things are like mass produced. Have you been a part of that process in something that you've designed?
Yeah, a bit. I mean,
so I guess the stuff you make here is, I guess, in smaller scale.
It's a bit of a combination. So I subcontract things that I can't do here. And sometimes things that I could do here, but it doesn't make sense either in terms of time commitment, or sometimes it's like I was going to make one element of, I make this folding cookbook stand which is made out of stainless steel wire, and I've got a very beautiful Swiss bar bender in there for bending.
Can you show me that?
I can.
We can walk around with these if there's anything you want to like show me.
If it makes sense.
I've seen the little video of it.
I have you. Okay.
You doing? I think the hooks, the coat hooks.
Okay, so that's the machine. It's a beautiful thing to use. So I'd figured out that I could make one element, which was this sort of M-shaped curvy bit out of 4mm stainless wire. The other element was thinner wire, and it was coiled like a spring, and I can't make that here. And it's also stainless is quite tough stuff to work with. So that's made by a spring making company basically. But when it came to it, the nature of doing things like springs, there's a sort of curve. So to make one is ridiculously expensive. Or basically, when I got a prototype and they made 50 of one thing. I've just done this recently, a new hook with the same company, little bent stainless steel wire hook, and they said, well, we'll just run 50 off, because by the time they've got the machine, all the work is setting the machine up really,
and then it's like
whatever you program it, I want a 60-degree bend there, and then I want it to do this sort of arc of so many things, which it bends. It doesn't roll it. It does lots of tiny bends. It's just the way that machine works, or those machines tend to work like that, from what I understand. But you give it all these instructions through an interface. But however much you know from formulas or experience that there's going to be a 3% spring back on 4mm stainless steel wire. It's never exactly what you guess it might be. So I had these 50 prototypes that were all wrong and unusable. It's like, you did sort of suggest that when I committed to this, because it was quite expensive to do.
We could have done 10.
But for them, they would have charged me the same. So they just sent me 50. I was like, I'd said, what about 10?
10 unusable ones or 50 unusable ones. And at the same price.
And then they said, well, and I said, if they're not right, I should have known it, but we could tweak them back into the correct form now. And he went, oh yeah. And so I kind of went, okay, let's just do 50. And you can't, because stainless steel wire is too stiff to be able to bend precisely enough. And because it's quite a complex form, you get one bit right, but getting that right pushes three
Yeah,
other
something, yeah.
angles out, whatever. So, but anyway, and then so it's like this funny curve in terms of expense and
Yeah.
commitment. So you pay a lot of money to make 1 or 50,
Yeah.
and they're right or wrong, and then they can adjust the machine, and they have to spend another bit of time tweaking to get that.
Yeah.
And then if you make 50, 100, 500, whatever the price,
Yeah.
so you need to be making like 500 or 1,000 of something. Well, I always try and make things that are sort of affordable. I don't really want to get involved in making very exclusive, expensive things. So it was quite a commitment at the beginning to, trying to keep the prices affordable. Meant going for a number that seemed a lot.
Yeah.
Or as in, it's quite a large quantity to take on.
Yeah.
I've forgotten why I'm telling you that, but yeah. So it's a bit of a mix. Yeah, and in the end, because we had to commit to a certain number of the spring parts.
Yeah.
We needed a similar number of the
other bits,
the M-shaped bits.
Yeah.
And it turned out that they could buy, because they buy the stainless or whatever wire they're getting.
Yeah.
In at such vast volumes. And then once you're spitting these things, and that was the cheaper element in a way, because it's got just a few bends, whereas the spring's got a bit more work to do. It was not necessarily cheap, but it wasn't like I couldn't buy the stainless steel wire for the cost of it, but it was the extra bit, the difference was like, well, it makes more sense for me to pay them to do it, and I don't have to make some stops and spend some time
figuring it out
and setting up, so I can get the precision right.
Yeah.
But I just let them do it all. So
how do you feel about that process of like finding other people to do those? I guess you've gone through it for quite a long time.
I love it when it works smoothly, but it's a lot of work, and it's often I think it's partly why I've ended up making things myself.
Yeah.
Because at one point I thought like it's not really my job, because I am a designer and I can make things. I love making things, but I felt like at one point I felt like professionally I shouldn't be doing this. I should be more professional as a designer and just be sending drawings to people. But it depends, depends who you're working with and whatever. But finding good companies, especially if you're only doing things at a small scale, and especially if you're not committing to making 1,000 a month, or often they want these kind of or they expect you to be making repeat orders of 1,000 elements a month or whatever it is. So I feel more able to do it now than I did when I started. At the beginning, wood metal plastic was a sort of a little side project and a way to get.
So when did you start that? So that's like your kind of online shop?
I think probably about 8
Public-facing
years ago or something.
Yeah.
And it was somewhere a sort of outlet for things that sort of mostly came out of other projects.
Okay.
And I never sort of expected it to grow, and there was never a plan, but it's sort of grown quite organically. And I guess the last few years I've been thinking about it more like with definitely more open ears or eyes to other things that could join the family sort of thing.
Some of the things like the book stands, that I guess that's your own thing, but then you also like curate a selection of
I don't know if it's really curating, that sounds a bit too
finding.
big a word for it. Finding things, basically
discovering different things.
So there was one was a Spanish broom, or is a Spanish broom, which I'd bought in a supermarket in Bilbao 20 years ago, and just thought it was a beautiful object.
And then so you just find that, or you think now you have the website. If that's 20 years ago, you're like, that broom would fit into this, and then do you kind of reverse engineer the process, trying to find the manufacturer and how to buy 50 of them, or
exactly. Nice. And that was lovely. That really nice little company down in the south of Spain, family run by 3 sisters. The dad sort of retired, which is a shame because I'd like to have met him, and he was the only man that knew how to run the machines, and all around the factory there was little things that where he'd adapted a machine or fixed a machine or
Yeah.
built his own machine even, but using like parts of an old cement mixer to make a thing for filling bags of something else. It was a brilliant place, and I thought he was a brilliant man that you know, just all these lovely clever things around.
Little ingenuity.
Yeah,
Nice.
So and that's lovely when you can combine it with getting to see the factory.
Yeah.
More recently, like last summer, we met some friends on Hampstead Heath for a picnic. We had a picnic and a nice bottle of white wine, and our friend Alex, she got out of her rucksack these little melamine tumblers.
Yeah.
And we were drinking this wine. I said, these are lovely. They're really just perfect tumblers for a picnic and drinking white wine out of, or you know, anything else. And I was looking at the bottom going, where do you get this from? And she'd lived in Lisbon for quite a few years, some years back. And she'd go, oh yeah, these are really quite a common thing in Portugal. They're, you know, sort of thing you just buy in a kitchen or hardware shop. And luckily they had the mark on the bottom, so I took a photo of it and tracked the company down, and I sort of launched them in inverted commas. So I did this little show in Milan last April. So I got them shipped from Portugal to Bilbao, where my wife's from, where her mum is. So they were sitting in their garage for a week or something, and then we went to see them at Easter, and then I went direct from Bilbao to Milan.
Yeah.
I thought it's crazy getting them shipped into the UK with all the Brexit rubbish and shit. So, and then shipping them out again. So, and also that whole show was done on such a sort of a non-budget in a way, rather than a small budget. And so I thought, well, just get them, and then I'll just film a suitcase full of them and take them to Milan.
Import-export of tumblers.
Yeah. And it sort of, you know, it works. I quite like working at that scale, and I get excited by things that I like a melamine tumbler.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful material, and I think there's a bit of me which is like, I always feel like, you know, plastic is a problem in the world. Sure, definitely, absolutely, without a doubt, it's a problem. But it kind of gets a bad rap, often for the wrong reasons, and people tend to therefore think all plastic is bad.
Yeah.
And plastic is definitely problematic. All plastic has some issues, but actually, the biggest problems are, you know, like the fact that people don't see anything wrong with buying a water bottle.
Yeah.
33 centilitre water bottle, chugging up some of it, maybe all of it, and then tossing it in a bin.
Yeah.
It's like, I think they should be outlawed. Like, it's really easy to buy a nice water bottle made by Sig in Switzerland or anyone else. There's countless options out there. Just buy a water bottle and fill it out the tap.
Yeah.
You know, I really feel like, and then, you know, on top of that, people drinking Coca-Cola and all that stuff, which, you know, not only rots your teeth, it does all sorts of other damage, but the amount of fuel that's used moving all that liquid around by whatever transport is done, and then all these plastic bottles, which they're the problem. That's the main problem, is that kind of a single-use plastic. And I really think that in an ideal world, all that would be outlawed. You wouldn't have that kind of bottled water, especially, but Coke should be outlawed as a company, a corporation. They are the world's biggest plastic polluter because of that. You just think, on that alone, it's like, well, outlaw them. We need some sort of global authority that has the ability to do that, I think. Obviously, we won't be able to do that today, but we can work on that.
Put the idea in the ground. Have that idea out
there. And actually, so plastic, when things are the right kind of, plastic is often a great material for certain types of objects, and it does certain things really well.
Yeah.
And if they're done well for the right reasons, in the right material, to the right quality, I think it's probably fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't done the sums
The
and
research.
research, but you know, I think like if you've got like these melamine cups, they're beautiful quality, and as long as you don't put them in the dishwasher every time you use them, dishwashers should also be outlawed, I think. You know, they will last a lifetime and more. They, you know, so they're the opposite of single use, and they're, you know, if you want, he said, what's a better solution for a picnic? Definitely not paper cups from the corner shop that are plastic lined and you can't recycle.
Yeah.
Etc. Etc. Or plastic cups from the corner shop, which is so often the case at picnics. You see parks littered with all that, and I think buy 4 nice or however many you need melamine cups that will they're really tough. It's a beautiful material to have in your mouth and your hand. It looks beautiful, you know.
So is melamine like a brand, or is that just
it's
like an actual material?
It's an actual material. Yeah. It's one of the earliest plastics after Bakelite. It's very similar in Bakelite, but much more durable and tougher.
Yeah.
You know, it's really tough. You can drop it. You can. Yeah. It's great stuff. Anyway, so I think I'm not determined, but whilst I am acutely aware of the problems of producing stuff, whatever it's made of in the world, and plastic having issues, I do feel like it's not really discussed enough within the plastic argument where it should be, when it might be okay actually, or the right thing to use.
Nice. So the shop in Milan, have you done many of those like physical? Like I found you, I think, through, is it Steffi? The Monolith Estate guys. I think through her Instagram possibly.
Right. Okay,
I don't know what object it was that she had.
Yeah.
And then I saw you had the thing in Paul Smith, like the pop-up shop in Borough Market, maybe last summer or the summer before. So have you done many of those like in person?
No, not really. I did about I don't know, a couple of years ago. I was asked to present that stuff in an exhibition of makers, basically.
Yeah.
For it's called the Harewood Biennale, and it's in this big stately home called Harewood House. Like enormous, important, but not my cup of tea, architecturally speaking.
Yeah.
And interesting history, blah blah blah. Really great curator, and so we were all invited to go and propose a project for the Biennale, and I proposed something that was about using something in the space and bringing it into the house from the grounds. And they came back to me and they said, well, we feel like there's already someone else doing this project that's about earth and stuff, which was mine was dealing with. And what we'd really want you to do a wood, metal, plastic thing. And I thought, okay, well, that's a bit disappointing because I got excited about doing the other thing, which I felt was a good idea, and it would be great and powerful, and it would do something. It would change the space.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, what do you mean show some wood, metal, plastic stuff? Isn't this supposed to be an exhibition that's about thought-provoking? You know, like, why do you go to an exhibition?
A couple of bottle openers.
Yeah,
and,
it's not a shop, is it?
Yeah,
it's
a hook and some other things. Yeah.
And
a broom.
And I thought, okay. Well, I thought if we are going to do that, it needs to be done in a way that brings with it a message and a bigger picture or a narrative or something. So I proposed that we made what I called a kiosco. So it was like a suggestion of a kiosk-like beachside shack kind of environment. The idea being that it could be something that you find along the beach in Brazil or Sweden, anywhere really. And it would sell things, and you get to that sort of beachside shack, and you can buy a glass of beer and a cold drink in a coconut shell, but you can also buy a sun hat and some plastic beach toys.
Yeah, some flip-flops.
Yeah, but also they'll sell slightly random stuff like some padlocks or I don't know, something that's sort of odd.
Yeah.
And I always kind of love those things, I suppose, for their oddity. And I thought, well, we can build something like that, and we can stock it with wood, metal, plastic stuff, but mix it up with other things. But the other things will have stories to tell as well. So I made this little kind of booklet to go with it. So there was a little anecdote about each of the things. So it felt like it described the objects, but also described wood, metal, plastic as a thing and the philosophy of thinking that brings that to bear.
Yeah.
But then mixed up with like those Coleman's mustard. I'm selling that, and I like Coleman's mustard, English mustard. And a few times I've used them because they're slightly conical, or truncated conical.
Oh yeah, like tapered a little bit.
If you drill a couple of holes in the lid, screw it to the wall, and then screw the jar back on, it makes quite a good coat hook because of that angle.
Yeah.
And the little one's quite a good size for a coat hook.
Yeah.
So I could write about that, and relate it to the rest of my practice. So that related to an exhibition I'd done once years ago where I'd done that, and so I was sort of like filling it with a few foodstuffs that told stories.
Yeah.
And that made it a little bit more Kiosko-like.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I did that, and then that was up for a few months, and then as it was coming down, Lila, who runs Lila's shop and cafe on Arnold Circus, she was in the midst of changes. There was a change of chefs and coming out of COVID, where they'd been not exactly shut down, but they'd had to change the way they traded because they couldn't have people coming and sitting down inside. And so she's decided that through September, maybe into October, she was going to invite a bunch of producers she worked with, because she's a food person. She works a lot directly with producers growing vegetables or making cheese or wine or whatever, and get them in to come and do like talks or activities or workshops or displays of stuff. And she asked me, because I've made most of her furniture and things for the shop over the years in the cafe, and at first I thought, well, it's a bit odd because I'm not a food maker. But then I thought, well, if it's September, it could work because it'll be London Design Week, and she was really keen for me to do it. So I said, okay, let's do it. And actually, what I can do is, because I've got to go and take down that show in Leeds in Harewood House, I can just bring certain elements of that and reconfigure it in a way that it fits there. Yeah, the other thing about Harewood House was it had a history of, it was built on the back of slave trading and tobacco growing in Jamaica, or the West Indies at least. So the Kiosko had this thing that it had a soundtrack. So I had this sort of sound system that I built with a soundtrack of, so basically pre-reggae Jamaican music. So it was a sort of combination of African drumming rhythms and folk stuff that basically grew out of the slave trade, but before reggae started. So it was this sort of, it was kind of interesting as a soundtrack because it felt like it was pre-reggae, and I didn't know, I love reggae music, but I didn't really know there was all this background to it. And I found this great LP from the 70s that was a sort of an overview of that music and a little potted history of it, and how it described the movement of slaves from Africa to the West Indies. And I thought, well, this is quite nice to situate this in this house that's built on the blood and toil and sweat of those peoples. So I brought that bit down, and then the kiosk was built with 2 fridge freezers, which were like the shop cabinets in a way, filled with shelf brackets and things, and mustard and tahini. And so I kind of used elements of that in Lila's shop. But I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, maybe I should actually be there with a brown coat on and act like a sort of comedy shopkeeper.
Yeah.
I didn't do the brown coat, but I did do the shopkeeping. And the other thing, but to carry on with the Jamaican, one of the other things I had was red stripe, little stubby bottles of red stripe as a Jamaican thing. And so I sort of spent a few days in Lila's shop, being a shopkeeper,
Yeah.
serving red
Oh,
stripe and selling things, and it was really nice thing to do because it was like meeting your customers as opposed to just selling things online.
Yeah.
And I knew some of them. Some of them were friends or colleagues in the design industry, or some of them were customers that I'd dealt with before online but never met, and people who'd never had any dealings who came in as well. And it was nice because there was a soundtrack, there was red stripe, and then also another thing that was a young designer who I knew through an old friend that he'd worked for, who'd then gone back and studied. He'd done architecture initially, worked for my friend Adam Brinkworth, doing sort of interiors, retail mostly interiors, and then he then went to the RCA and wanted to get back into making things and furniture or products, and he'd finished there, and that happened during COVID, so he'd had a sort of a weird time there, but survived okay.
Yeah.
Partly because he was a mature student and he knew how to get things done outside of college anyway, and he'd made these really nice perforated folded sheet metal bookends.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And I called him up and said, look, Oliver, I've just seen your bookends on Instagram.
Yeah.
Really, really nice. And what's funny is I'd had an idea for doing it's the same idea as in a perforate bookend. I love perforations.
Yeah.
I love laser cutting and folding as a thing, you know. I've done a few things like that. And I'd had an idea to do it, but I'd sort of dismissed it because I thought, how do you make that work? Because it's one of those odd objects that you buy it, you put it on the shelf.
Yeah, you don't really see it.
You never see it again.
Yeah.
And also you can buy, which I think I later looked up, you can buy something like that in Muji for maybe £6,
Yeah.
£8, I don't know what, but you can buy it in the Viking catalogue for a pair of them for £1.50 or I don't know what.
Yeah.
But how can you
They're
ever...
making a million of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you could never really compete with that. So I'd sort of dismiss it. But when I saw his, I thought he's done them a bit differently to how I did them, and I liked it. But also he'd done them quite a bit chunkier, and they felt a step more industrial. And I thought, and I knew the situation he was in. He just finished college. He wasn't working. But he was just sort of exploring things, putting things out online. So I'm doing this little show at Lila's shop. Do you want to put them in there? See if we can. Do you have a little stock you can sell? We haven't got time to make some, but we could also make some in the long term. Do a different version maybe for wood, metal, plastic.
Yeah.
And that was kind of an interesting thing to do because it was the first time I'd worked with another designer.
Yeah, like collaborated on
and I
something,
thought, well, this is good. It doesn't have to be stuff that I make.
No.
If something else turns up that I like, that
Yes, like
there's room
slots
for.
into it. Yeah.
So that was another sort of step or iteration of how it's grown.
What's like the most popular product on there?
It's probably that folding. It's either the folding cookbook stands.
Yeah.
Or the Erno plastic hooks.
Yeah.
But they've been going a lot longer. So they were one of the very first things.
Yeah. Is that just even when you're saying about this, so this is the Commons thing.
Yeah.
And just when we were talking about skateboarding earlier, and it just reminded me of like when I'm walking around, I see things that you could ride up or
it's
like even just like that, and you're like, oh yeah, that'll be great for a. Because if it was flat, I mean, it would hang a coat on it. But then just doing that is just like those little things in your mind, just like when you're walking around, looking at things, like amazing to have been able to tap into that. Whether it was from a really young age or you only became aware of that last year or something.
I agree. And I think it makes life more enjoyable that you have. It's like you've got another set of eyes in a way. It's like you've got 4 eyes, not 2. You've got this other way of
like
seeing.
a roller day. I mean, you can have like loads if you're like into photography. You see things in that way, and maybe even like all these filters. That you kind of put in front.
I do. Yeah, I've got this idea that another way of improving the world is that everybody, at some point after leaving school, maybe they should have to have a year out of school working somewhere. Assisting on fashion shoots or whatever. But then the next year they should have to do a foundation course. because it would do that to you. You know, that it's about being creative, isn't it? Having another way of looking at the world. And I feel like if Liz Truss, Boris Johnson and arseholes like that had done a foundation course, probably we wouldn't be in such a mess as a country as we are now. And that they would have this understanding of the importance of culture and how it can improve society and life, and be taken more seriously and accepted as a fundamental, particularly in, you know, a modern post-industrial nation like Britain. It's, you know, like it's one of the few things we've got to export. So we should, you know, invest in it with young people.
Yeah.
Anyway, shouldn't go off on another tangent.
No, tangent's great.
Yeah.
Do you want to just give me like a little walking tour of the space? That would be
sure.
really great. Just want to like clip that on there.
Okay,
That'll be all good.
So
With a magnet or a clip on, but yeah, both kind of work.
So this is the kitchen, and a sort of meeting table.
Yep.
And then lots of storage. Yeah, lots of.
So do you try and keep? I was gonna say, do you keep kind of everything? Like, how many years worth of stuff do you have here? Is this just like since university, like kind of collecting since then, or is there things from
Yeah,
like,
I mean, there's
your
stuff-
childhood? Or...
Yeah, there are some things from childhood,
Yeah.
but maybe an odd book,
Yeah.
but definitely tools.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so lots of books.
Yeah. When did you kind of start collecting the books? Was that when you kind of discovered like the library at university, and then you would?
Yeah, although
like,
I
around
think
that
then
time?
I didn't buy books very often because I was, you know, surviving in a
Yeah.
frugal student lifestyle.
Yeah.
But as you know, now I buy books. It's my weakness or my drug.
Yeah.
I have lots more books at home as
Yeah.
well, and I buy books quite a lot, I suppose.
Yeah. Do you like kind of sit and like reference them a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, here and there, depends. But I get through them. I've always got a stack of new ones
Yeah.
waiting to be picked apart. And this needs reorganising because I've run out.
Have you got a system to it at all?
Well, very vaguely. So that's design.
Yeah.
Mostly sort of, I guess you'd call them monographs or that kind of thing, and then more like design criticism or exhibition catalogues and things, and then a bit more weird, and then books that are books about chairs or tables or general furniture or specific factories or companies.
Yep.
That's all art. That's much more straightforward, just art and artists all the way down. And then that last one is architecture, and then it drifts off into exhibition catalogues at the bottom as well.
You got the Reader's Digest complete
Repair
DIY manual.
Yeah.
I picked. I think one of
It's
my
a
friends
lovely
like
book,
picked one of
yeah.
those up in like a skip. But I love those kind of books.
Yeah, lovely.
Or like, I guess like, I don't know what era they are, like
Yeah.
70s or 80s, like
Often
DIY
with
or
beautiful illustrations and things. Yeah, and
Yeah,
a lovely. I mean, it's a lovely bit of graphic design, that
Yeah.
one as well.
or like
Lovely
step
cover.
by step.
Yeah.
How to put up a shelf or
Yeah.
plant roses and those kind of things.
Yeah, so that shelf is all sorts of odds and ends and
Yeah.
mixture of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few bits of mixtures, but they need. Yeah, they've got to the point where I need more space. I need to sort of, I think, unpack it all completely at some point. I need to bring more in from home because they're overspilling at home as well,
Yeah.
and then. Yeah.
Nice. And these stalls from different.
Yeah.
Are they just like prototypes or different kind of commissions?
Prototypes or whatever that's left over from different projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy that process, like the prototyping?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah.
love it. Yeah. That feels like when you're really designing, I think, for me.
Yeah.
Depends what it is, but particularly with sort of furniture things that, you know, you have to. Like I remember this is one of the first bits of furniture I made here.
Yeah.
With a young guy called Tom that was helping us at the time, and it was when, I don't know if the wall was probably up, but it maybe wasn't fully finished, but it was in that early days of being here.
Uh-huh.
And I was asked to design a stall for the Ace Hotel, which was in Shoreditch. It was just opening at the time, or about to open. So I was commissioned to design and provide, I think, 12 stalls. So I sort of sketched out this idea and thought, which is often what I'll do, is then make a prototype, because I feel like I can draw that in 3D software, but it's slightly vapid.
Yeah.
Whereas if I make a real one,
you can like sit on it.
I can sit on it. I can pick it up. I can walk around it, but also I can test it structurally and think about what might change if I want to go deeper with those rails or not. Anyway. And I had this southern yellow pine knocking about, and I had this little. I used to have an old radial arm saw, you know, which was slightly scary thing. I mean, I was all right with it, but I was always slightly scared if other people used it. Because it could really grab. Anyway, and then.
Is that just like when it just pulls? I've never used one of those.
Yeah.
But does it like?
It sort of pulls itself.
Right.
You have to almost hold it back.
Yeah. Okay.
And if it suddenly catches, it's just like it can really.
Yeah. Kind of the reverse, vicious. I guess, of going like. Yeah. With the track saw, you're going away from you, where this is coming towards.
Yeah. I remember now what it was. So I bought. Underneath this floor, there's one of those steel floor tiles that they use in office flooring. They're steel. It's like it's. I think 1 mil galvanised sheet wrapped around a 25 mil chipboard block, 600 mil square, and they've got a sort of edge lip detail, so they all sit on little adjustable feet, and the idea is that you can pull them up and put new cabling underneath, and you know, and I think they come from the early days of computers in offices for data cabling stuff. So this floor, that's what the floor of this space is. And then to make that wall and to make it as sort of acoustically good as possible, I thought I want to go down to the floor slab, not sit it on this floating floor. Yeah. So then I had to cut this stuff. How do you cut that? I've got a rail saw. I mean, it's going to kill the blade though, isn't it? But let's try. I think we got 4 or 6 tiles in, and there was smoke coming out. And I've just ruined a, 50 quid Festool blade doing that. And I just thought, how are you supposed to cut this stuff? And I just called my mate Amos, I thought he's the sort of bloke who's probably done this before. And Amos said, oh yeah, well, there's this evolution tools.
Oh yeah,
they brought out this. Yeah. So I bought a little evolution not track saw, but circular saw. Yeah. And we did all the rest of them. We had to cut, I don't know how many, both sides. So there's 2 tile cuts each one.
Side,
did them all, and the blade was still good.
Yeah.
I thought, this is amazing. Well, obviously, it's not going to last forever, but that's a useful tool to have. Yeah. Because I work quite a lot with found and reclaimed timber, having something that you could just whack through something that might have nails in or whatever, quite a useful tool to have that. And being here with more space, I was more open to adding to the tool stock. Yeah. So at some point, I was buying something online, a tool, and they had a special offer on an Evolution Tools little chop saw.
Oh, yeah, that's the one that I see a lot of people use.
Yeah, and it was the smallest one they ever did, I think, but it had the same size blade. And the blades were like, maybe 40 quid or something. And this machine was being marketed, I think it was 100 quid, but it was special deal, 50% off. And I thought, well, for 50 quid, you're getting a blade that would cost you 40.
Yeah, and the tool itself.
And the tool, and I could do compound angles with that, which I couldn't do on the. So that's a useful thing to have, even if I never use it. I've just got a spare blade. But I'm sure that will be handy occasionally, and you can take that on jobs, site work, whatever. So I bought that little machine, and it was quite a flimsy little thing, really. But we made that with it, and it was funny now thinking about it. It was a bit of a key moment, because it made me think. I don't know if I'd really consciously thought what I'd do with that at that point, but previous to coming here with a job like that, I would have then worked with some friends who've got a big proper workshop now out on Lea Bridge Road. And I would have got them to make them. And having made the prototype and having this although it was quite a flimsy little thing,
Yeah.
it did compound angles, you know, easily, and precisely enough. I thought we can make them ourselves.
Yeah.
That'd be good because it's not a massive budget, and I'd probably earn nothing out of it by the time I've paid
Someone
them
else.
to
make it.
So you know, and at the time I had a little plain things, but I got all the oak. They were oak, the real ones made. I got that machine to dimension for me.
Yeah.
Because it's quite a lot. And I think I had some bits of oak that did the rails already, but I got this basically 1 by 1 sort of stuff done. And yeah, and I think that's set in mind that actually this workshop has more potential to it than I'd really consciously thought about.
You can basically do everything from start to finish.
Yeah, or definitely more of this.
Yeah,
and it's more fun. You get more control. You control the budget. You can, you know, I think that thing is like you never have to necessarily even do a full set of drawings because you can, as long as you've figured out something, you can go in the workshop, you start and you go, okay, well I can figure out where I want that rail once I've made the prototype or whatever, and that
like
kind
visually looks good, but also structurally,
all
that way,
yeah. So that was I'd never really consciously thought that, but that was quite a key moment in a way. Yeah.
And that wasn't that long ago.
No, that was 10 or 11 years ago.
Started. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Those little things you like learn once you start doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of imagine, I guess you've gone through like the journey of like really doing it yourself, whereas I guess maybe some people come in and just be like, other people can do this for me.
Yeah.
And I feel that's more stressful, like you're saying about the bending.
Yeah.
Or just like trusting someone to do it right and not being right, and then you're like, I guess this is what I've got 50 of them now. So
yeah. I mean, with that,
anyway, kind of
I knew the guys that I would have got to do that. I've been working with for years. One of them I went to London College of Furniture with, and he's an amazing maker of stuff and incredibly capable. So I knew that wouldn't be a problem. But it probably would have eaten up most of the budget just because they have their overheads and they've got a proper big workshop to run and guys to pay.
And I guess also people, whether it was like Ace Hotel or whoever, like coming to you now, do you think people like that you kind of make the majority of the stuff?
I think some people definitely
people buy into that in that way.
Yeah, I'm always a bit. I'm also. I'm always a bit not suspicious of it, but I have reservations of it, as in it relates to this sort of worry about what craft means in terms of people have this romantic idea of what a craftsperson is, or particularly what a furniture maker is, and they immediately envisage, you know, a small stone barn in France with, you know, wood chippings flying through the air and someone smoking a pipe, hand planes and all that, you know. And either that, or I remember an old ex-girlfriend's mum, when she found out I was a furniture maker, asked me if I could make her a mahogany drinks cabinet, and it's like, not really my kind of thing.
I've got some bits of stuff from a skip. I could use that.
Yeah.
And,
so people, I think it's like all these terms. It's a loaded term that people lay on their own idea of what they think about, and most people don't know what design is. Or they have their own idea of what design is.
Nice. Yeah, keep moving around.
Yeah.
So, so with like you were saying about the drawings, do you kind of have like a lot of ideas for things that you haven't made already, or does someone come into you?
No, there's
like
always
really kind of in like get that going. Kind of for me, I have idea. I don't have like a book of like sketches or anything like that. But yeah, when someone comes to me to make something, that's when I'm like, right, I'm kind of ready to go. But maybe I'm early in that journey of doing that. I would really love to have like a book of things, and if there's no one coming to me for stuff, I'm like, right, I can just
do that.
Crack on with this.
I guess
kind of
it's
like
different for me because mine's this has grown quite organically. Yeah.
But yeah, you start with a drawing, but then you kind of went into like the prototyping stage like quite quickly, and that really helps you kind of move it along.
Normally that's the way.
It's not just spending hours on SketchUp or whatever.
No, definitely not. Yeah, and there's and I think you also asked if there's things going. So there tend to be always stuff in development,
Yeah.
either just in my mind or on a
laying awake,
drawing or a
thinking of
doodle
Okay.
or a prototype or a combination of all those things.
Yeah.
So at the moment, one of them is this, which is a letter opener that I made this to try it out,
Yeah.
just to sort of test ergonomically, and I've just got the first ones back.
Oh wow.
The stainless steel, the real
Yeah.
ones. But I made a few, you know,
Yeah.
different ones. That might have been the first one actually. You know, trying to get it all.
So you've made that here.
Yeah.
And then would you take that to the stainless steel metal bending?
No,
person?
so that I've just got
Or you
got it
have a
laser
drawing
cut
for it?
out of
Yeah.
sheet, and then I'll do the bending on my Swiss bender.
Okay. Yeah.
And some riveting and a bit of edge treatment
Yeah.
and surface treatment,
Yeah.
probably.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's not fully there yet. There's a bit
No.
of time, but I've got the first ones back to when I've got time,
Yeah.
then start setting up the bender and
Yeah. Do you want to show me that? That'd be
Sure, yeah,
interesting to
yeah.
see that. Is that like your favourite tool in the workshop, or do you have a favourite?
it's definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one of them. Yeah. So that's it, without the inner tube. And it's, yeah, this is the little adaptation I think I made for that, or that I made the video about.
Yeah.
Because I was doing these repeat things, and if you're only bending thin stuff, you can pull on that
Yeah.
too. But that's actually the handle, and it comes with you know, 2 extensions.
Okay. For
So-
like really getting the.
So when you're getting your like 20 mil thick stuff, you need to be out there.
Yeah.
But it's a lovely machine to use,
Yeah.
and I love the fact that it's not exactly silent, because you make a bit of, but there's no motor to it.
Yeah.
And that's become a semi-permanent fixture. I mean, it might remain totally permanent. Just much easier than doing that. You know, so you just like crank it over,
Oh yeah.
and
Nice.
then you crank it over, and then you just pull
Yeah.
if
It's
you
like
do-
one motion kind of thing rather than.
rather than 4. Anyway.
Yeah.
Because
Nice.
as you to push, you need to normally undo that to release
Okay.
the piece. So to release it is it's one motion the other way. So it's so it's just like I feel like I should tell Gressel about that. Like I've got an idea.
Yeah. Nice. What's this thing behind here?
That's a fly press,
Okay.
which I use for making what I refer to as sort of toenails. So on flat bar, where's a bit? Basically, it's the same that detail
Yeah.
where you want a kind of a radius
Okay.
that isn't a full, you know, a full swing
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the way around. That's not the same diameter as the width of the stock.
Mhm.
But I've always loved that detail, and it feels like a very nice end to a flat bar,
Yeah.
rather than the full round, which always feels a bit forced,
Mhm.
or just a complete, depending on the bar and what it's used for. But it feels nice in your hand. It sort of removes that sharp corneredness
Yeah,
and
yeah.
sharpness. And one of the things I love about flat bar is it comes with sort of soft edges, so it feels like an appropriate extension of that language.
Mm.
And after many years, I've got that with a tool that allows me to do it.
Yeah.
In fact, here's the
So it just kind of munches off the.
that's the stainless.
Oh, wow.
That's straight off the laser.
Yeah, it's not like. I mean, I'd imagine it should be really sharp, but it's not too sharp.
No.
Nice.
Little chop saw, little welding station.
Yeah. When did you start learning to weld?
Well, I learnt to weld with oxyacetylene when I was at the London College of Furniture a bit, and then I didn't weld for years. And it was coming here. The old place, there used to be in the back of the building a guy called Nick, who was a really great metal worker.
Yeah.
So any time I needed welding done or metal work, I'd go and see Nick. And quite often I'd make things on there,
Yeah.
like legs for a bench or whatever, and then go and see Nick to weld it. And he was great to work with, lovely guy. and then bigger, more complex, I just hand to him,
Yeah.
do drawings and send to him. But he was in the same buildings, so I just go and see him. It was really easy.
Yeah.
And actually
that
coming
community.
here, in fact, he built those gates for us.
Yeah.
But coming here, I was aware that I wasn't going to have Nick round the back. And actually, I was made a couple of benches to sit out the front of a restaurant not so long after coming here. And it was a similar thing to that thing with those Ace Hotel stools.
Yeah.
Was I bent up some flat bar, needed 2 little welds before I could go and get them powder coated or whatever. And I thought, well, to go and see Nick, they were a bit too much to cycle with.
Yeah.
So I could bring the car in tomorrow and then drive them down to Nick. Problem means I need to leave them with him, then bring the car another day, go and pick them up. And I know it's a 5-minute job. And then I thought, well, in here, with a steel floor, it's quite a safe place to do welding, isn't it? I suppose my last workshop would have been, a death trap. And I knew what MIG welding was, and knew that it was a bit more. I don't think I would have committed to doing oxyacetylene and having big gas bottles and stuff.
Yeah.
And I talked to a friend who had I knew he had a welder, which is the same one. It's this little Finnish thing called a Kempi.
Oh yeah.
So like really good quality.
Yeah.
And I thought, something that's made in Europe is good. And because it's, I said to someone recently, I feel like when it comes to woodwork, I feel like I can get by using shit tools because I know what I'm doing. Whereas with welding, I haven't done it for years. I watched some YouTube tutorials.
Yeah.
I know I can learn it, but I feel like I want to get a really good welder, and I'm not going to be doing very complex welding. So and I'll learn more hopefully.
Yeah.
With time. So I bought that, built a little welding table, and it's fantastic to be able to do it.
Yeah. I've never had to go. Again, watch people on YouTube using it.
I mean, if you fancy it, MIG welding's the sort of entry way of doing it. It's sort of in some ways one step up from a glue gun. It's not quite, but if you'll get the hang of it.
Yeah, I have like an old camper van, so it'd be useful.
Okay, yeah.
Rather than paying someone else to do it.
Yeah.
Not saying I want to re-weld the whole thing, but
Yeah.
it would be useful.
Yeah.
But even not gotten into like metalworking or making.
Right.
Just because like what you're saying about the process of finding someone to do it and all those things. But it is something that I definitely would like to do, to explore into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in an ideal world, I'd have a separate space. It's why, in fact, why I built this was because after getting the welder, I then found myself doing more grinding.
Yeah.
And
then
then
like you need like 5 separate spaces.
Yeah, and these aren't really doors; they're more like baffles. So when you're grinding, you're containing that dust a little bit at least.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of messy, isn't it, and dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't. That's one element of it I don't particularly love is grinding dust and noise. It's sort of in a way it's the opposite to the
people
Grestle.
don't really. Do they use like extractors like in metalworking?
Well, I don't.
As much as
there
I guess,
are
like woodworking.
but I think you need
serious.
you need something that would arrest sparks within it, wouldn't you?
Yeah. But I guess like woodworking, you're really trying to keep the dust down. But metalworking doesn't seem to be such a thing.
I've got a feeling there are, but there's sort of serious industrial things with special filters to stop sparks getting into it.
It's kind of like where you put your hands into a thing. It's like you want a box like that, basically.
Yeah.
Like a sandblasting box, kind of.
Almost,
thing.
yeah.
But woodworking is like, everything connected.
So the rest of it's, woodwork, mostly from here.
Yeah.
Lots of
material storage.
Lots of, offcuts.
Very organised material storage.
Yeah, pretty organised. I think that's the other thing, having enough space to organise your offcuts is essential, because then you can find stuff whether you remember you had it or not.
No.
Whereas if it's just stacked up, like in the old place, other stuff on top of it, if you can't see it, you might as well not have it in a way.
Yeah, I mean, even like now, I have like a little rack of offcuts, kind of like this. Right. And I remember going to like in Peckham, there used to be like a wood merchants that closed down, I guess, during COVID, and like buying like a sheet of plywood. This is before I was making. Like now, I order 10 sheets of plywood. You don't really think about it, but then you're like, bought this for £20. Like, what can I kind of do with it?
Yeah.
And now I'm like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
Like, I just have like a box downstairs, and like people take them for their own projects and stuff. But yeah,
It's
back
good.
then you're like, I had
Good
one
to
sheet,
find a
and
home
it's
for
like,
'em.
yeah, it's kind of nice. Like people are like, oh, I took that and I made like some coasters or whatever it is, or a little shelf in their bedroom.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, really enjoy that.
Yeah.
In that way. But no, yeah, it's cool.
This is my newest machine.
Yeah.
I had this one for a few years. This is a typical flat bar thing with that toenail design.
Oh right, yeah.
And this will crop and punch stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's specified to punch up to 5mm stock, which is that.
Yeah.
Which seems quite impressive for a little thing like that. But actually, when you do it, if you do any amount of it, this tool fractures. That's the punch bit at the back.
Yeah. Oh yeah, see the hole. Oh right.
And I've spoken to them, and I think, reading between the lines, they know that this isn't really beefy enough.
Yeah.
To do 5mm. So they should really sell it as a machine that will punch 3mm.
Yeah. And down
only.
Kind of thing,
yeah. But it was so good having the ability to do it, because I make quite a lot of stuff out of flat bar, and I love it as a material. And so I'd looked occasionally why don't they they should just redesign this and make it like 30% bigger and beefier, and then it would do 6mm as well. That would be an advantage.
Yeah.
But they're not going to do that, it doesn't seem. Anyway, they sent me a new thing. Said, well, don't worry, we'll replace that. That shouldn't have failed by now. And
Yeah.
so I'm aware that if I do try and use that for 5mm, I'm shortening its life, and it's just boring.
Yeah.
And it's also not particularly precise machine. It's made in the UK, not made in Switzerland. So I'd occasionally looked for a punch, and eventually found this one. This will punch up to 8mm.
Oh wow, I love this little tube. The little catching tube.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you've got the handle support.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
It's all a bit of a work in progress.
Yeah.
It's but yeah, because otherwise they go on the floor, they bounce, and they're quite slippery on there.
Yeah.
So just containing that's good. And then this just like, the handle. Yeah, basically I bought it. The guy who I bought it from got someone in the factory to pack it, but they didn't pack the handle or this. So then I said to him, look, I'm sure it had a handle with it. And he went, oh yeah, okay. So they sent the handle, but none of it was packed very well. I assumed that the handle had fallen out because the packing of this was so
gone out the box
bad,
somewhere. Yeah.
Anyway, then it came, and I thought, okay, well, it falls back quite a bit further. And when you're repeating, I thought, well, this is like, I don't know how far I need it.
Yeah.
But each time you're doing it, having to go back there rather than there. So it's just sort of trying to fine tune it for maximum efficiency.
Like, every time.
Yeah.
With the bending, so you've got those like powder coated.
Yeah.
So you do the bending after you've had it powder coated?
No, before.
Before.
Yeah, because otherwise the powder coat would
crack.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, it's got a certain amount of flexibility because it's plastic coating basically.
Yeah.
But not enough for that.
Nice.
And I've got this is relatively new machine. It's a little helically.
Oh yeah, with the little squares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is so
Beautiful.
Nice, so much quieter, so much less vibration.
Yeah.
And sort of a delight to use compared to the old one I had, which was a bit of a rattly old tin box sort of thing.
Yeah, I've never really used that.
If you ever
in that way,
look at that. It seems like, I'm sure that was the smallest one I could find, because it's an industrial thing mostly.
Yeah.
So they don't make many sort of hobby-sized ones, but I'm sure they'll start. Soon you'll be able to buy a DeWalt one that's a
I
desktop.
think you can see people put like the helical head on like a DeWalt one.
Oh, have you?
Like
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I did look at getting a head for the old machine I had. There was a company in America that did make it, but there was some issue with it. You had to do something. I thought, well, that's that needs to be done by an engineer with
Yeah.
a milling machine. I can't do that here.
Angle grinding something
Yeah.
or drilling something out. Or
But I also thought, well, I'm actually going up a little bit bigger would be quite good. And
yeah.
yeah.
And is this a laser cutter?
Yeah.
What do you use? Do you
I
use
haven't,
it?
I
What do
haven't
you use
even
it for?
used it yet.
Yeah.
That's something I bought again with a project in mind that then I sort of just waiting
Yeah.
sitting on the back burner, because I hit an issue where although it's Mac compatible, there was some, I can't remember even, this is how on the back burner it is, there's some issue with my operating system, basically the computer talking to it,
Yeah.
or
that doesn't
talking
really
to
work.
the software that I need to run that. It
Yeah,
does
yeah.
work, but I needed to download something, and I remember thinking, pausing, well, maybe I'll just run that from an old laptop,
Yeah.
and that can be dedicated.
It's kind of what you need to do now, even with like have friends that scan like film,
Right.
and it's like this computer doesn't go on the internet
No,
because it will
no.
auto update and
Yeah.
we'll never
Yeah.
be able to use
Yeah, it's
the
one of
scanner
those
from
kind
like
of things.
2002.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you just have to have like different
Yeah.
computers
Yeah.
for different things nowadays.
LeRon.
Even though that's not even that old. I'm
No, it's
imagining.
not.
Like
No, it's
kind of
quite
a new
new.
machine.
Yeah. Yeah, LeRon, who's a graphic designer that I used to share my old studio with, he's a great friend. He got from a college, I think, that was clearing out an old plotter
Yeah.
that used to be used for architectural drawings. You know, so it'll
Yeah.
it's like a roller on a sort of T-frame
Mhm.
that the paper rolls backwards and forwards to,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like with a pen mounted in a little
Oh
clamp.
wow.
And he'd used it as a student to make posters and loved it as a technology. And it's really nice because it's kind of crude,
Yeah.
old school technology you don't otherwise see. And so when he heard they were chucking it out, he was like, can I get it then? I'll pay you. And they went, no, just take it, you know. So he got it, but he already didn't have a computer old enough.
Yeah.
And he then spent quite a lot of time tracking down an old enough computer, let alone a computer that could run the software that would talk to it.
Yeah.
You know. So he's got this great big box of a computer sitting underneath his desk
Yeah.
to
Just
run
this
a
thing.
redundant machine that he never actually uses anyway. But you know, it has the potential.
Yeah. Those things are amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you can't back update. You're always updating forwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, going backwards once
Yeah.
it's gone there.
Yeah.
It's yeah. And then is this like more just the woodworking kind of section?
Yeah, this is where this tends to be where I spend most of the time in the workshop.
Yeah.
Building things. Well, this is the work table.
Yeah. Do you feel like the woodworking side is like the most prominent?
Yeah.
Like most things you make are out of wood.
Yeah.
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 Like larger objects, I guess.
Yeah.
Whereas the
Yeah.
wood metal plastic is more plastic and metal with some wood things.
Yeah, and some wood.
Mm.
But I guess also, you know, wood metal plastic is one element of what I
Yeah.
do, but I do other things that aren't wood metal plastic.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that a lot more of that's more wood than metal.
So is that more like you were saying about doing the restaurants and stuff? Do you do like much like residential things, or is it a bit?
Not much, no.
I don't know if would you say that's commercial, like the restaurants, like I saw like the chair that I was sitting on.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
I
Yeah,
read
that
about
was
the
done for
story
a
of that.
restaurant. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess everything I do is not everything I do is commercial, because some of it plainly isn't.
Yeah.
But as it, I do things where I know I'm not going to earn money on them.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that makes it non-commercial, but I never really think of it in those terms.
No.
I just
Maybe
do
more.
stuff
Maybe
that-
commercial's not the word I was thinking. So I guess me coming to you saying I want 4 chairs as me
Yeah.
at home, or a restaurant coming and saying I want 25 stools, or what's
Right.
I don't know what the definition
Yeah.
is between those two, but yeah, I would
Oh,
say
I see.
I'd
Commercial,
say commercial
as opposed
more
to
as like
domestic.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know what.
Yeah.
you'd
Okay.
call that
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
way.
So I don't do much domestic,
No.
but someone came and bought 4 chairs from me this morning.
Yeah.
I mean, they just picked them up this morning.
Yeah.
They'd bought 4 more previously, and they're now moving to a bigger house out in Oxfordshire. And but they're those chairs which I sell
Yeah.
on wood metal plastic.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
But I wouldn't normally get
Like a commission.
to make chairs.
No.
I'm very rarely asked, and then if I am asked, I'm always a little bit cautious, because I always feel like, I wonder if they know what I do. I wonder if this is one of those situations where they're going to be asking for a mahogany drinks cabinet, because you're never quite sure. And
Okay. Yeah.
so a lot of the when I have done domestic things, it's mostly been for a curator that I've worked with on
Yeah,
an
yeah.
exhibition, and they know exactly what I do.
Yeah.
Or
Did
actually,
you
I've
not-
just been asked by
Yeah.
a graphic design studio in Birmingham to make them a cabinet, and I've never met them.
Yeah.
I had a quick look at their website. It looks like very nice work. But I said, maybe send me some pictures of the studio, where it's going to go, and tell me a bit more about what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Are you good with reclaimed materials? That's some of the things I
Yeah.
often think about with that. That seems like a place to apply recycling thinking.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, no, that's all sounds great. And I think they get what I do, and it's
Yeah.
going to be smooth. But it just felt like a very nice exchange already. I just
Nice.
felt like, okay, we're on the same page. It's going to be
Ready
good.
to go. Yeah. How do you like interact? I know like you post on Instagram, but more like things you see, like very visual in that way.
Yeah.
Do you get like any work kind of coming through that at all, or is that more just a platform for you to put things out?
Yeah, I think I don't know really.
Makes
I
any
don't.
sense.
I think it's just sharing things you love.
Yeah,
Or,
I guess I saw the process of.
yeah.
Like, do you enjoy like documenting like your process in that way? Is that something that you've
I don't
ever
normally
really done?
document the process so much, but I think I was so overjoyed with my little IKEA toilet roll handle
Yeah.
bodge, and how smooth it made this machine that I'd
Yeah.
always thought of as the epitome of bar bending machines, you
Yeah.
know, that I imported
Yeah.
at great cost from
One up to it.
Switzerland. But now Sweden's improved it
Yeah.
via this weird thing that I just happen to have this sort of nasty IKEA toilet roll holder in my scrap metal
Yeah.
box, and well, that's kind of perfect. I just need to put make it a little washer thing and a screw
Yeah.
M6 in the end, and it's away, you know. And it's
Yeah.
like just nicely handle sized, and
Nice.
yeah. So I think just that. And little things actually that so this is another thing. I've never had dust extraction before coming
No.
here. I've never had space for it. I've never grown up with it.
Yeah.
Like in the antique workshop, it was.
It's out the back in the machine. Yeah.
Yeah, now it was. You look at back in there. So how come that was illegal in the 70s?
Yeah.
You know, there was things like, you know, but it was anyway. So when I came here, I was determined to figure out dust extraction. So I built this, and then how to get, you know,
I didn't even notice this.
yeah, how to get that hose there without it getting in the way.
Yeah.
And I'd picked up a couple of these on the street, because you see them on the street all the time, don't you?
Yeah.
And they won't reuse them apparently, because they're potentially contaminated.
Yeah.
Which I often think someone should set up a scheme that picks
Cleaning
them up
them,
and
yeah.
puts them through a bath of vinegar or something.
Yeah. Like UV blast
Yeah,
it
or
or something like
yeah.
you'd imagine.
And
But
they
even
had-
like the bracket that it goes into.
yeah, that was
Just like
off of a seat office chair base or something.
yeah.
Yeah, and I get excited about doing things, finding a way of doing things
Yeah.
like that with stuff I've got.
Yeah. Rather than like you could probably buy that from Axminster
Possibly.
or whatever
yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
On like a retractable system.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
it works in that.
Yeah.
I guess it is retractable.
Yeah, no,
slightly.
it is. Yeah, yeah,
Goes
no, it is.
horizontal.
Yeah, no, it is.
So if you move the table out a bit, it's,
Yeah,
yeah, it's great though.
yeah. So there is that element to it. I think I always loved reuse of stuff, and seeing stuff misused in its reuse was doubly exciting.
Yeah. What's this?
It's a cabinet I'm making for a friend who's an artist,
Mm.
who's made. I can show you. I've got one of his paintings next door actually.
nice.
So he's making these paintings with 7-inch singles in the middle.
Yeah.
He's having an exhibition of these paintings. He wants to be able to play the paintings. So it's going to have a record player there,
Yeah.
the amp there, and then the speakers in the bottom, and a kind of hatch at the back. And then, because the painting's like this size, the arm has to be on an extension out here, with an extended arm to be able to play the records.
Yeah.
So this is going to sit in the middle of the space so they can play the records.
Nice. Is that where the other, whatever that's called, is that going to be the arm?
No,
the crutch.
No, the arms.
Using the crutch.
He's made the
He's
arm,
made that
or
bit,
what?
yeah.
He's got an engineer,
the
I think,
crutch.
to make an extending bit of that.
Yeah. Nice.
Uh,
Alright. Well, if it's all right for me to take some photos,
Sure, yeah.
and then I can be out of your way.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
That was,
cool.
yeah, it's amazing. I mean, just love like seeing this.
Yeah, it's a
And,
great space. I love it.
Yeah, it's cool.
I felt very happy in here, and yeah, look forward to getting in. And
Yeah, that's nice.
Right, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Michael. Listening back, it was interesting just to hear kind of how the conversation flowed, and I really hope that it comes across my kind of interest and I guess excitement in some ways for being in other people's spaces. Obviously Michael's is amazing. He has a workshop, a kind of metalworking space, a kind of, I guess, a studio with all his books and receipts and everything kind of in there, and even a kitchen. He could kind of live in that space, I think. So it's really fantastic to kind of spend some time there and talk about his work, and to see the kind of the small mock-ups that he had on the bench, and then the kind of final products, and kind of really see that process rather than maybe just drawings on a computer and then a final object. As you're listening to these, if you think of anyone that you think might be interesting to me, please feel free to reach out via the website or email or on Instagram. All the links are kind of in the description. Okay, on to the next one. Over and out.